Hi everybody, how's it going? Welcome back to Pause and Effect on Air. I'm your host CJ. Today I am doing more game development using the new Ultimate Introduction to Godot tutorial from Clear Code that's like 9 hours long to attempt to learn some things. I fully admit, I am very tired, tiny bit burnt out. I don't 100% know if my heart is in it, but all I can do is try. So let me go ahead and get the music started. Good. There we go. That should level out well enough, I think. Okay. So I got like 2 hours through. Let me think. There were I did skip ahead a bit. Thanks for trying for us. Yeah, absolutely, Jenny. Thank you. Because I haven't done this in 2 weeks. I'm trying to figure out where exactly I was. So, I think I was right at the very beginning of the Frogger game basics. Probably for the best that I start this section from the very beginning. Ow. Oh, I just realized it's not capturing the audio. One moment. On the YouTube end. Oh, right, because I was using Zen browser last time. I'm using Vivaldi now.
Script and using all of this to create logic. By the end of it, you should already have a pretty decent idea how Godot works on a basic level. Now to get started, for the first part in this project, we are going to create a very basic outline, where we have a player and the background. Or to go into a bit more detail, we want to create a basic game scene, and then place the player inside of it. On top of that, we want to move the player by just a bit. Although for now, this is going to happen without input. That's going to be the next part.
Okay.
Here we are in Godot, and at the moment, we don't have any kind of scene inside of the engine. That being said, if you look at the file system, we have a couple of folders.
I watch this back.
Most importantly, we have graphics.
Quietly
in there,
or
we have, for example, the player, a simple version, and the tile set. We're going to come to that later. Then we have a whole bunch of objects, and so on. We also have fonts and audio, but those aren't too important. Now to get this project, you want to look at the video description. In there you can find a link to a Google Drive folder, which is going to look like this. In there, you have the project files for every single game. For example, right now, we are working in the Frogger game, and in there, you have the Frogger project setup and the Frogger start files. The second one you want to download, so download, and then your computer should be downloading the entire thing. Inside of the project stages, you're going to find this, by the way. The finished code for every single part of the game. If you get stuck somewhere, you can use that to figure out what went wrong. Should be quite helpful. But much more importantly, the file you just downloaded is going to look like this, and you want to extract it. In the usual way, then you're getting the Godot starting files. Right now, this is just a folder. To import the entire thing into Godot, you want to open the editor, and then you can simply drag and drop the files. From the folder, the one you have just downloaded with all of the stuff inside, just drag it in there, and then you're good to go. Open this one, and you should be seeing the project. Alternatively, you can go to Import, and then navigate to where you have to be, which in my case is going to be the Downloads folder. In there you have Frogger start files. Open this one, and then you want to open this project file inside of the folder. You are going to get the same result that you are seeing in here. Double click on that, and then you get exactly what I have started with. Other than that, this project does not contain any kind of script. All of this we have to create ourselves. And well, for that, first of all, I want to create a 2D scene, which I want to rename right away to game. Then save the entire thing with Ctrl S or scene and save scene. And I want to save it inside of the scenes folder. Game.tscn is totally fine. And now we have our first scene for the game, and this is going to contain all of the logic. So for example, attached to this is going to be the player, the background, all of the cars, and so on. Speaking of which, first of all, I want to add the background to it. And for that, we can look at graphics.
Hey, Kazuhiro Hayate, welcome to the stream.
Map.png. This I want to import. In other words, I want to create a sprite 2D, which can hold
how's it going, man?
So in other words, I want to drag map.png into this texture slot, and then we have the background. That is actually already pretty solid. That way we have at least something to look at. Next up, I want to create the player. For that, I want to create a new scene, and then create another 2D scene. This is going to be for the player, and to that, I want to add another sprite 2D. This sprite 2D is going to display the player graphic. So let me zoom in a bit, and then go to the folder graphics, player, and player symbol. Drag it inside of the texture, and then we have the player. Although, if you look closely, this is looking horrible. Also, while I'm talking about it, if you look at game and you zoom in into this map, this is also not looking great.
I think
so
I've done
what's
this
the problem
already.
here? When you have graphics, like for example the player, Godot has to scale it. This original player graphic for the player is 12 by 14 pixels, a really, really small graphic. And Godot, to make it this big, has to scale it up by a lot, which is totally fine. The issue is that there are different ways to scale a graphic, and the one that we are currently using is really, really not working. To fix that, all we have to do is go to Texture, and there we have Filter. At the moment, it's set to Inherit, but if we set this to Nearest, then this is looking significantly better. That being said, this isn't what I actually want to do, so let me undo it. Simply because I want to do this operation for every single graphic inside of my graphics folder. Doing it one by one would be kind of a pain. You can simply go to Project, Project Settings, and then look for Texture, and then look at Textures. In there, you have a default texture filter, which is set to linear by default, but we want to set it to nearest. That way, by default, we are scaling all of the graphics in this filter style, and that is going to look a lot better. Nice improvement. Then I want to save the scene, player.tscn is totally fine, and then we have the player. And this player we want to add to the game scene. So with game selected, I want to either instantiate a child scene or press Ctrl-Shift and A, and then we can add the player scene to the game scene.
Actually,
if I now zoom in a bit,
handy,
we can see the player.
Shortcut.
Let's move the player roughly here, so it's a bit easier to see. And then we can try to run the game. For that, click on this button here or press F5 on the keyboard. And then you want to select the current scene to start the game. Select current, then we're getting a graphic, and it does work, but it's really small at the moment. That we're going to fix later. For now, this is totally fine. I am happy with that.
Hi, SC Jolly, welcome to the stream. I am continuing the tutorial that I was working through 2 weeks ago. Let me think. I kind of forgot where I was, but I am just starting over from the Frogger thing. The Frogger tutorial in this long 9-hour video. Just trying to figure the entire thing out. Just from the very beginning again, and when I get to the spot where I was, I'm sure I'll figure it out.
A bit better, we can scale the sprite 2D, which we do under Transform, and then scale it by a factor of 6. If I now go back to game, the player should be much more visible. And that is definitely better. Alright, with that, we have two scenes that work together. Next up, we want to move the player in a certain direction. For that, the player scene needs to have a script. So click on Attach a new script. We want to have inherit node 2D and save it inside of scenes.
Music not too good for concentrating.
All of this is fine.
I mean, I'm concentrating, but if you want me to change the song, then I mean, I'm cool with it, but that's because I turn my headset down too. I can barely hear it. Turn it down a little bit more so that you guys can barely hear it as well. It's fine. All right.
And
if you say so,
we can write a couple of lines of code. Now for the player, first of all, I want to have a couple of basic variables. I want to have a variable for the direction, and this needs to be a vector 2. If we set this data type, the default value that we are getting is going to be a vector 2 with x and y both being 0, which is exactly what I want. Although, if you wanted to be a bit more specific here, you could do vector 2 dot 0. Same thing really, choose whatever you like.
Let me test this. Okay. Hey, Killer Machine, thank you for the lurk. I appreciate it. Okay, so this does work. Good. In a way, it works.
Besides that, for the player, I want to have a speed, which should be an integer. And for the default value, I want to go with, let's say, 200. Once we have that, I want to call a function that runs on every single frame. This could either be func_process, or it could be func_physics_process. I am going to use physics process, because later on for collisions, we want to have just a bit of physics. Although at this point, it wouldn't really matter. And in here, we want to move the player position, or in other words, we want to grab the position of the current node. Remember, when we are attaching a script to a node, like for the player at the moment, we get access to all of the stuff inside of the inspector. So at the moment, we are targeting the position via this position value. If you have an over position, you can see that this value wants to have a vector 2. And the way I am going to approach it is I'm going to add a value to it, which is going to be our direction multiplied with the speed. And that's actually all we have to do. Although at the moment, this isn't going to do anything. So if I run the main scene, the player is not going to move. But that happens because our vector 2 for the direction is 0. We have a vector 2 with 0, and this we are multiplying with 200. The end result is going to be a vector with 0 and 0, so the position doesn't change whatsoever. However, what we can do is change this vector 2 to a value that's not 0. I want to have a vector 2 where x is 1 and y is 0.
That's
and now if I run this thing again, our player is moving to the right, although it is quite fast. Let's change this to a 5. And there we go. Now the player is moving to the right. If I set this to 1 and 1,
cool.
Then the player is moving right and down. And that is working pretty well. Perfect. With that, we have a really basic setup. Obviously, it doesn't do very much, but at the very least, we can move things around. Let's do an exercise. I want you to create a new scene with a few objects, like trees, boxes, whatever you like inside of the graphics folder. Add all of that to the scene,
remember doing
and then add the scene to the game scene. So you are decorating the entire thing a bit effectively. On top of that, use GDScript to scale up the scene over time. How fast this is going to happen is entirely up to you. Pause the video now and see how far you get.
Yeah, no, I remember doing that. I don't think I need to run that again.
I want to add another scene, which once again is going to be a 2D scene. Let's call this one exercise object. The name really doesn't matter. And then save it. This scenes folder is totally fine. Save in here. And then we want to attach a couple of objects from the graphics folder. Let's say I want to start with a basic tree. You can actually just drag and drop it into the scene. Godot is automatically going to give you a sprite 2D. Although by default, the position is going to be a bit weird. So let's reset that one. And then the tree is right in the center point of the scene. I guess besides that, we can add another tree. And let's say we could add a box like so. This I want to save. And then inside of the game, I can add via this button or Control-Shift-A the exercise object. This we can place somewhere, let's say here. Then run the game. And we have another scene inside of the game. Doesn't look amazing yet, but at the very least we have something. Besides that, I want to add a script to the scene. All of the defaults here are totally fine. Then create. And like for the player, I want to run a function on every single frame of the game, which I am doing via physics process once again. Now for this thing, I want to target the scale property, which we can target via scale. So hover over the property inside of the inspector, and then you're getting some bits of information that are super useful. Once again, Godot wants to have a vector 2 with x and y, and that determines the scale. So to target it, I want to type scale and then assign a new value to it, where we want to get scale and multiply it with a value of, let's say, 1.1. Let's try the entire thing, and that might be quite fast. And yeah, it definitely is, but you get the idea.
Yeah.
Let's change this to 1.001. Then it's not so strong anymore.
Oh, whoops.
Now we can see that the scene that we have just created is growing very, very slowly. Not something we can use for the actual game, but for an exercise.
Right, I forgot
this
permanently disabled streamer mode for
we
Discord.
are pretty much good to go for this part. Although there's one thing that is a bit annoying. If you look at the bottom, Godot is complaining with the debugger, where we have not 2 errors, but 2 warnings, that we are not using the delta parameter. To fix that, I want to add an underscore to both of them. That way Godot stops complaining.
Wait, I just thought of something.
If I run the scene again now, the debugger doesn't complain, which feels a lot better. Next up, we are going to move the player around using player input, which is bringing us a lot closer to an actual game. For that, we have to capture user input, which in Godot is quite easy. We can simply create an input map. Via that, we can capture keyboard, controller, joystick, and mouse input, which is really all that we need. So back in Godot, you want to go to Project, Project Settings, and at the top we have an input map. The way this thing is working is you define an action, and associated with this action, you have some kind of input, like a key press on the keyboard, for example. I can type left and press enter, then we're getting one action for left.
Already have
and to this
the
action,
map
we
completely
can
mapped out here.
assign events, which is a fancy way of saying
what that
a
is.
button on the keyboard, a mouse button, a joypad button, or whatever you have available in here. Godot is also listening for input, meaning if you press a button on the keyboard, for example the left arrow key, then it gives you the right option right away, which is super handy. So in my case, I want to click on OK, and now to the left action, we have the left physical button on the keyboard. Besides that, another action I want to add to it is the A button on the keyboard. Click on OK, and now we have 2 key bindings for this action. You could also add a controller, although for now I am not too worried about it. What I rather care about is to add other keyboard bindings for up.
I'm gonna adjust my mic a bit.
Right, and down.
Okay, there it is.
For all of these, I want to add the keyboard bindings.
I think it's a little closer to my face now.
It's the up arrow on the keyboard, or the W key. For right, I want to have D on the keyboard, or the right arrow. And finally, for down, I want to have the S key, or the down arrow. And that is all we need for now. We can close this dialog, and then work inside of GD script. Specifically, I want to work inside of the player. Now there are a couple of ways to work with the keyboard bindings. The easiest one, I think, is to use input and then is action pressed. This is looking for an action that is being pressed. Let's start with the right action and then print the result. If I now run the code,
push my chair forward and then lean
by
back
default, we're getting false because the button is not pressed, but if I press right on the keyboard, we are getting true. If I release it, we're going back to false. The way we could use that, for example,
there we go,
is to only move the player if this value is true. Let me cut it out and add it to an if statement. Only if we are pressing the right button, then we want to move the player. If I run the thing now, the player is not moving, but if I press to the right, then the player is moving, which is already quite a bit better. Although this still isn't exactly what we want. To actually move the player in a certain direction, I want to keep position is equal to direction times speed. And then when we are pressing the right button, I want to change the direction to a vector2.right, which is the same as a vector with 1 and 0. Besides that, I want to duplicate all of this and then get the action pressed for left. If that is the case, direction should be vector2.left.
You're the one that
if I now run the code,
this method.
I can press to the right.
And now that I'm watching this again, I'm like,
and if I press left, we are going. And this kind of works, although the player never stops, which isn't ideal. Meaning we have to figure out some kind of system to organize the input and then get the right direction.
Yeah, God,
there are a couple of ways of doing it. And the best way to get started is to look at input. For that, hold Control and then click on Input. Then you get the documentation for input. If you go down a bit, you can see all of the methods associated with it. There are quite a few.
I think if I remember correctly now, I think the last thing I remember seeing was how to set up... They had me do an exercise of the differentiation between is action pressed and is action just pressed. And I kind of get it now. Because, well, I do still kind of get it, because is action pressed is, I'm trying to think about a way to put this in a way that will make sense for everybody else. Like, say, for example, you have a button, right? And I'm going to use an audio button. I'm going to pause this for a moment. Okay, I'm going to use a audio button. Okay, hold on. Yeah. Alright, if I attempt to, like, press this button, is this the one I'm thinking of? Yep, that's exactly the one. So, if I attempt, like, the difference between is action just pressed and is action pressed. So, is action just pressed? Let me just play this again. So, it will only play, like, one instance of it. Like, one press is one instance. But then, is action pressed does not differentiate between simply pressing the button or holding the button down. Yeah. Like, you kind of get the idea. But, yeah, is action just pressed for single instance actions, and is action pressed for, like, if you want to, like, hold down a button. Like, I guess, for example, a crouch mechanic in an Assassin's Creed game. Or, like, the crouch mechanic in The Legend of Zelda: The Wind Waker and the crawling. It's like, you stay crouched as long as you are, like, holding down the button and not moving. You stay in the crawling position if you move while attempting to crouch, but, like, don't let up on the R button. And yeah, That's the difference.
The one that we care about the most is called getVector. Click on that, and then we are going to do an exercise. I want you to read the documentation and figure out what input.getVector actually does and how you can use it. Pause the video now and see how far you get.
Okay. Let me turn that back on. Input dot get vector. Oh, right. I remember how this works now. So, okay, I remember how this works. So vector2 get vector is your inputs are registered as string data that can be the names of your input values are string data that can be referenced in a way. Then like get vector negative x string name, which is in the 2D space, that is moving left. Positive x movement, which is moving to the right. Negative y, which is moving up, and positive y is moving down. Dead zone, I'm not 100% certain what kind of value you can set to that. I have it set as 1 in my thing, but I really don't think it matters. Or it probably does. But, so negative value, move left. Positive value, move right. Negative y value, move up. Positive y value, move down. And then 1 for the dead zone. So there. I figured it out.
I hope you read this entry. I think overall it's fairly straightforward. Basically, getVector wants to have 4 inputs. Negative x, negative y, and positive y. Or in other words, for normal people, left, right, up, and down. These are the directions that we can add to this method. And as a result, we are getting getVector 2 that organizes all of them super easily. Or in other words, back inside of the player, I want to get rid of all of this.
I bet you do.
Instead, update direction via input and get vector. Now we need the 4 different directions. Negative x is left, positive x is right, negative y is up, and positive y is down. Once we have that, I can run the game and now move the player around. Feels like magic. If I stop pressing any of the buttons, then the player stops as well, which works really, really well. getVector you see all the time. It's incredibly useful. And fundamentally, it's not that complicated. All it does is it takes 4 inputs and then returns a vector that we can use right away inside of the direction. And to finish all of this up, I want you to do another exercise. Create another input, this time for the space key.
Oh yeah, that's what this
was.
was.
And then inside of GDScript, when this one is being pressed, print something. And as an extra challenge, make sure that when the button is pressed, you're only printing it once, not multiple times. You will definitely have to read the documentation for all of that one again. Pause the video now and see how far you get.
I've already done this.
Once again, back inside of Godot, I want to go to Project.
So this is roughly
settings,
where I was.
Input map, and then create a new action. I call this action Confirm. Because later on from the title screen, this one goes back to the actual game. Confirm might not be the best name, but it's going to work for our purposes. The actually important part is I want to add a key binding to this action with the space button. Click on OK, and now we have space physical. That's all we need. Next up, inside of the player script, I want to check if input is action pressed with confirm.
It's going
if that's
to
the case,
print.
I want to print something. And you might think that this is all we needed. However, if I now run the game and I press space, even if I press it once, we're getting something multiple times. Not ideal. So what's the problem here? Is action pressed checks if this key is pressed on every single frame of the game. And physics process always runs at 60 frames per second. Meaning this function checks every 60 milliseconds if this key was pressed or not. Even if you only press it for a tenth of a second, for Godot, this is quite a few inputs. Now there are a couple of ways to fix it, but the easiest one is to not use is action pressed, but rather is action just pressed. That way Godot is only checking if the button is pressed, but not if it is held down. If I now run the thing again, I can press space and we only get one output every single time. Much better. With that, we have user input. At the moment, we do have some basic input, but the game just doesn't look very good. Most importantly, everything is tiny and we can only see part of the background. All of this is going to be fixed in this part where we are going to add the camera.
Oh, camera
that way
time.
We can zoom in and actually follow the player on the map. And fortunately, cameras in Godot are really, really easy.
Yeah.
You simply create a camera and then tell the camera to follow the player. That's all we need. The camera could also follow any other object, really whatever you need. On top of that, you can also set limits and speeds for the camera. That way, you have a ton of control over how this thing is moving. First of all, the player shouldn't be scaled up anymore, so the scale should go back to 1 and 1.
Okay.
On top of that, inside of the exercise object,
Wait. I haven't scaled him at all. He just looks like that? Well, that's a problem.
I want to get rid of this code, so we're not scaling it up anymore. That way, I can run the whole thing, and everything is super, super tiny. To fix that, we want to add a camera and zoom in. On top of that, the camera should follow the player. Now for that, to the player scene, I want to add a camera 2D. If I now go out a tiny bit, you can see this pink purple-ish frame. That is the frame of the camera. And simply by having it attached to the player, it is already going to follow the player. Or in other words, if I now...
Let's see, shall we? Oh yeah. I guess this is definitely going to run in with the exact problem that SC Jolly keeps talking about. Every time I run Godot Engine, which is when I move the character, it doesn't look like the character itself is moving, it looks like the map is the thing being moved. Which, I mean, I get it, but
run the game and I run around, the camera is following the player, which is already a lot better. Besides that, if you look at the inspector, we can modify a couple of things, most importantly the zoom level. If I set this to a factor of 4 for X and Y, then the frame has gotten a lot smaller, and if I now run the game, we can see the player quite a bit better. And that is actually already making a pretty big difference. You can also set the offset and, for example, move the camera down by quite a bit or up by quite a bit, because the player might want to look a bit more ahead, but I guess...
Hang on, let me test something here. Okay, either the character is still too big or I need to make the map... I may just need to scale up the map. Oh yeah, this is much better. Curious. What if I set this to 4? You know what? It actually looks like it's scaled appropriately. In a strange and unusual fashion. Yeah, okay.
For our purposes, we can leave it at 0 and 0. Besides that, if you look a bit further down, we have a few more options. We can set a limit for the camera. By default, these are basically infinite. Then we have position smoothing, and this you always want to enable. That way the camera
Position smoothing? Okay.
follows the player a bit more smoothly. You can actually see it right away. If I run the game.
Well, let me see. Oh yeah, I definitely see the difference. Oh yeah, this is very good to know, actually. I like that.
And I move around, the camera takes a little bit of time to catch up with the player. Which right now looks a bit silly because the player is too fast. But if we increase the speed of the camera to something like 20, then this is going quite a bit better.
Oh yeah.
Usually, you do want to have position smoothing enabled. It just looks and feels better. But once again, whatever you think is best. Finally, we can set a limit. For example,
I'm putting this song on repeat for a little while.
We never want to go further than 0 pixels. If I now run the game again, I can go to the right, but the camera stops at position 0. And that is pretty okay. Obviously, you want to measure this value. For that, inside of the game, you want to look at where this map starts and ends. The best way I find for that is to drag the ruler, and then you get a pixel measurement. So if you hold it there, this is going to be negative 192. Since this thing is symmetrical, the right side is going to be 192 as well. Then for the top, we have negative, I think this is going to be 320, and positive 320, because once again, this map is symmetrical. Now to get rid of the...
Wait.
You want to look at where this map starts and ends.
Oops.
The best way I find for that is to drag the ruler, and then you get a pixel measurement. So if you hold it there, this is going to be negative 192. Since this
Okay. Let me guess, do I want to create an entire horizontal guide? Oh yeah.
this thing is symmetrical, the right side is going to be 192 as well. Then for the top, we have negative, I think this is going to be 320, and positive 320, because once again, this map is symmetrical. Now to get rid of the rulers, you simply want to drag them outside of the screen. After that, inside of the player, for the camera, the left side should be negative 192, the right side should be 192,
yeah, I don't know. Left, 0. Or right. $1,536. Then the top is about it's 8. Okay. So then the bottom $2,568. All right. Oh, that's handy. So with what I've done, now the camera will not move beyond the boundaries of the screen. Which, I mean, that's a godsend. I think I'm already tired of this song. Yeah, now I need to find a way to, like, stop the I'm sure they'll probably have a thing to stop the player from going beyond the boundaries that we've set.
The top should be negative 320, and the bottom should be 320. Okay. Top and bottom can be very easily confused, but remember, going up means you are decreasing the values. But let's try all of this now, and I can move in the different directions, and we cannot go outside of the window.
Yeah.
And that is working pretty well and makes the game feel quite a bit nicer. I guess while we are here, what you could also do inside of project and project settings in general, you can look at display and window. In there, you can set the viewport width and height. Usually I set them to 1280 by 720, which is a much more standard resolution. Besides that, you can set the mode, you can stretch the thing in different ways, you can work with landscape or portrait, and do lots of different things in here. Although I'm not going to touch them too much. If I run the thing again, now you can see our resolution is 1280 by 720. And obviously, you can also resize the entire thing. That works totally fine. And with that, we have cameras. Our game is coming together quite nicely, but there's one really important thing missing right now. Physics, or in other words, collisions. That we're going to fix in this part. And for that, we have to talk about physics in Godot. We want collisions, and for that, Godot has dedicated nodes. There are 3 that basically do all of the work. The first one is a static body 2D.
Hang on, I kind of want to spend some time dragging and dropping a few sprites. Just populate with some trees. Bob Ross sets up happy little trees, and we, as game developers, set up happy little accidents. That's how it goes sometimes. Surprisingly. Okay. Right. There. I think I'll move this down a smidge. This can also come down a smidge. And move this as well. Yeah. Put those there. Transform. There, flip H. Whoops. There. Wanted to spend some time attempting to set up the scene here. I see a tile set for the player. I'm sure that'll come in relevance later.
This is a, well, static physics object. It doesn't move, and it's basically for objects like houses, trees, bins, really whatever doesn't move and needs to be collided with. Next up, we have a character body 2D. This is a physics object that can be moved via code. Pretty much any kind of character is going to be a character body 2D. This could be the main player, this could be enemies, this could also be a car, really anything that moves and doesn't have to be physically accurate while moving. More or less anything that moves and needs to collide with something is going to be a character body 2D, with some minor exception. The most important one is for rigid body 2Ds. These are physics objects that can be moved via physics. These are going to be used for arrows, cannonballs, and things like that. And just to be explicit, the difference between a rigid body 2D and a character body 2D is that a rigid body 2D gets some code in the beginning to determine the direction of the movement, and then everything else is covered by physics. whereas a character body 2D is going to continuously get directions from the code, meaning these objects can be updated constantly. Besides these 3 nodes, there's one more node that you see very often, and that is an area 2D. This one simply checks if a body is in an area, and that's all it does. On its own, it doesn't do any kind of physics, but it works very similar compared to the others. As a consequence, they are usually grouped together. And before we get started, there's one more super important thing, and that is that physics objects are not moved via their position. Instead, we are giving them a velocity, and then Godot calculates the position. Via that system, Godot can account for physics right away. First of all, I want to create a static physics object. We can actually use the exercise object for that. Now, at the moment, we have a node 2D at the root node. This I want to change. For that, I want to right-click on it and then change the type. If you now look at...
So does that mean I can just right-click on all of these and change them to static body 2D? I see the problem.
All of the nodes. We can go to node 2D, and in there we have a collision object 2D. If you expand that, we have an area 2D, and we have physics body 2Ds, but we have a static body 2D, character body 2D, and a rigid body 2D. The nodes I just talked about. These are the main physics objects. Although they are not the only ones. If you expand static body 2D, you also have an animatable body 2D, which is basically a static body 2D that can be moved a bit. And if you expand rigid body, we have a physical bone 2D, which is going to be useful for skeleton animation, but not something we need at the moment. So instead, I want to work with a static body 2D. Click on change, and now Godot is going to complain that this node has no shape. As a consequence, it cannot collide or interact with anything. To fix that, we have to add another node, either collision shape 2D or collision polygon 2D. To get started, I want...
Okay. Sorry, I am like readjusting this playlist right now. Yeah, it should be fine. A lot of Sonic music. There we go.
To add a collision shape 2D. If we add that, Godot is going to give us another warning that the shape must be provided. With the node selected, you want to look at the inspector, and there we can add a shape. Loads of options in here. Choose what you think is best. Usually a rectangular shape 2D is working the best. And I guess just to keep things simple, we can get rid of the box and of the second tree, and then change the shape of this thing so it fits the tree reasonably well. And by the way, if you hold Command or Up...
Okay, so what I want to do... So I'm going to have to undo everything I just did. Okay, so now what I want to do is add child node, static body 2D, okay. Sure. So static body 2D, then add child node, character body 2D. No, wait, collision shape. Oh, yeah.
Then you can scale this thing.
Oh, wait. I see what he's... That is not what I'm attempting to do here.
What?
Okay, but good to know. Don't Control Z in Vivaldi ever again. It opens up closed tabs. Actually, if that's the case, let me do something real fast. There. That is a handy shortcut for Vivaldi to have, but that is, or can be, fairly heart attack inducing. Okay. So what did he do? He created a new 2D scene. Oh, wait, no. Don't save. New. Other node. Static body 2D. So we're going to call this tree. So oh, right. A child node, collision shape 2D. How the hell did you instantiate that? Oh, right. Not what I'm trying to do.
Again, we provided. With the node selected, you want to look at the inspector, and there we can add a shape. Loads of options in here. Choose what you think is best. Usually a rectangular shape 2D is working the best. And I guess just to keep things simple, we can get rid of the box and of the second tree. And then change the shape of this thing so it fits the tree reasonably well. And by the way, if you hold Command or Alt, then you can scale this thing while mirroring it around the axis. This works on X and Y. And let's create the box like so. Cool. With that, we have one physics object. If you now look inside of the game, we have a tree, basically. That being said, at the moment, we are still not getting collisions, and if I run the game, the tree just doesn't do anything. For actual collisions, both the player...
Hang on. Save scene, tree.tsn. So now we add the tree in. Okay.
And the tree need to be physics objects. At the moment, the player is simply a graphic that can move around. No collision yet. Now, before we start working on the player, inside of the tree, in the script, you want to make sure that you are extending the right node. At the moment, node 2D is incorrect, because this is a static body 2D, meaning this should be static body 2D as well. Without that, the code would start doing weird things. Now, that being said, this exercise object doesn't need to do anything anymore. We can remove the script entirely. And close the script, we can simply discard it. That way, we simply have a tree. And I guess while we are here, we can rename it to tree. And just to be consistent, inside of the scenes folder, this shouldn't be exercise object, this should be tree. And the script, so exercise object.gd, we can delete. Remove it, and then the game is going to be a bit cleaner. Now that we have that, we can start working on the player. First of all, the player root node needs to change the type. We want to have a character body 2D. Once again, Godot is going to complain that we have no collision shape. This we can change by adding a collision shape 2D. And then give
Oh, you can... I see what he did. Instead of... He added it to the camera to the player within the player's scene. I'm realizing now I probably should not have... There we go. Okay, so... a child node, camera 2D. Position smoothing. So the limit was 08, 1536. And 2568. Yeah, I know it's going to clash. So now, to the player, not Sub or Sisters, I need to instantiate as a child of the player collision shape 2D. No. Capsule, I think, works better only if you are working in 3D. Yeah, this should be fine.
Giving it a shape. For the player, I want to go with a rectangular shape and then scale it so we are hitting most of the player. You want to leave a bit of space at the top and at the bottom because...
Okay, so it's roughly where the shirt is. I think it's roughly just above the hairline.
These parts should overlap with other objects. That way you get a fake kind of 3D effect. Looks really nice. You see later what I mean. Besides that, what's really important to do
change type to character body. And I need to change the script. There. I sincerely hope I haven't broken anything. Okay, well, no. Thank God. Don't make him a pill again. S.A. Jolly, does he look like a pill to you? God, I can't even do game dev in Godot Engine on Thursdays without my chat roasting me for making pill-bodied characters as test icons. Alright.
Inside of the script, we want to extend the character body 2D. And now that we have that inside of the game, I can move the player around.
No, but I saw you almost putting a capsule around him. Okay, I'm sorry. I'll show you exactly what that was. So your collision shape is how it's an invisible boundary that ultimately allows your players to collide against objects and give them physics. So there's a couple different ones that you can give. Like, the most commonly used ones are circle shape 2D, are rectangle shape 2D, which is what I'm currently using, and capsule shape 2D, which I feel like in 2D you would only really use that for like certain things.
And we still don't have collisions. That is because at the moment we are changing the position of the player via the position property, which you can do. You wouldn't get an error, but you also wouldn't get collisions. The way you are supposed to approach it is you are supposed to override the velocity, which is a property of a character body 2D. This needs to be moved in a certain direction, which we are getting via direction multiplied with the speed. Once we have that, you want to call move and slide. That way it applies this velocity and actually moves the character body 2D. As an outcome, the player is going to move a lot slower. That we can fix by changing the speed back to 200. Might actually be a bit too fast. But now the important bit is we have a collision with the tree. So I cannot go further than this tree, and that is working really well.
Okay. There. Sounds like physics to me. In a way, yes. But either way, yeah, now we collide with trees. I have an idea. There, if I lower that... There, now I can actually look like I'm passing behind the trees. that kind of gives me an idea for how to set up the scene. Before I do that, I'm going to... This is static body 2D. Put a node. Where the fuck is my bench? Oh, there's my bench. Okay. So that's good for nowish. So now... There. Add child node. Collision shape 2D. Rectangle shape. Okay. That's fine. Yeah, that actually kind of works. Okay, now to set up this intro. Oh. So the visibility on that's off. I'll just set this up node 2D. Trees. Yeah, that should be fine. Oh, wait, right. The reason I did that. Okay, node 2D. Benches. Oh, hold up. Yeah, that should be alright. Ooh, that's not it. Okay. Okay. Now, where's the mirroring thing? What the hell? Do these not have an offset? I guess they don't. I'm just gonna title this, or no, I need to. Rename bench left. Okay, I may need to get rid of this for now. What are the tools across the top? Like right here? These are, so this is the, a select tool for being able to click on things in the scene. This allows me to move objects. This rotates them. This scales them. Oh, I can hold shift while I scale? That's helpful. I wish I knew that. Okay. Show list of selectable nodes at position clicked. Click to change an object's pivot. Pan mode. Ooh, War of the Strings. No, I wasn't looking for rotating. I'm looking for mirroring, which apparently isn't a thing with Static Body 2D. So now what I want to do there. Now it's the exact same thing. I'm gonna leave that on repeat for a little while. War of the Strings. This track is godlike. Down and down, down and down, down and down, 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 down. Okay, good. Just rotate vertical, that's horizontal. So that's the wrong one. Here we are. Okay, what is your scale? Scale 0.5. Oh, it's the same. Cool. Okay. There. There. Now let me see if this collides like I'm hoping it will. You know, I may want to up the player character's speed a little bit. There. Oh, that's better. No, that's a little too fast. Okay. There. It's perfect. God, am I really gonna have to do this? For like every possible thing I want to add? It wouldn't be the worst thing I've ever done, but okay, let's go ahead and continue this.
That is all we needed for collisions. For the player, we have a character body 2D, which we are moving via the velocity and move and slide. Besides that, we have a tree, which is simply going to be a static object with a collision shape. We also have an image, but that isn't actually necessary. At least for the collision. For the actual game, this is important. So with that, we have a pretty good system. To finish up this part, let's do an exercise. I want you guys to restrict the player to the map. Or in other words, use static bodies that ensure that the player is not able to leave the screen. Pause the video.
Okay. Oh, shit. Here we go. Well, I have an idea that's stupid as hell, I fully admit. But let's create... Okay, change type, static body 2D. Call this boundary. Ouch. Okay, boundary, then let's see, collision shape 2D. So then now I want to add a mesh instance 2D So box mesh. Let's focus on expanding this out a little more. Now the thing I want to do is just change the albedo on this. Under texture maybe? No, material. No. That's not it, actually. Either way, this is fine. So what I'm going to do then is just... We have this white box. That's weird. This is certainly a solution. So, now, what we want to do... Add child node, node 2D. That is not where I wanted to add that. Node 2D. Boundaries. Right, I need to... Okay, that... Hold on. Why does that look like a racetrack? It's part of the asset that was provided. Okay, let me put that there. There. Whoops. Okay. There. The player's body can kind of clip out of it, but otherwise they cannot leave. Which is perfect. That's exactly what I want. I have no idea if this is what they intended. But you know what? It works.
You now and see how far you get. Back
Bing.
inside of the game. In the main game scene, I want to add a new child node, which is going to be a node 2D. Let's call this one borders. To this node, I want to add a static body 2D along with a collision shape 2D. For the shape, I want to add a rectangular shape. That way, once again, we get the shape and the player is not able to move past that. So here, we cannot go further up. And this shape, I want to move to the right. So we are here.
Okay, this is
right
exactly what I did.
And then I want to scale
with
this
less
up
steps
by a lot. So the player cannot go further to the left and leave the screen. Let's try this one now. And the player is not able to leave. This we have to do for all of the 4 sides. Although you do have to be careful. If I simply duplicated this static body 2D by clicking on duplicate or Control D, then we would get another static body 2D that we can move to this point here, and that would work. I can now run the game, and the player cannot go further to the right than this border. The issue is, if I wanted to change this collision shape, I would also change the other one. If you duplicate the static body 2D with the collision shape, these collision shapes are going to be linked, which sometimes can be useful, like in this case, where we do want to have the same shape. And this one should be a bit further.
This is why I feel like I was smart for setting up the boundary wall as its own, setting up the boundary wall as its own, like, game object. But if I set them to invisible, they still work. Okay, good. There, I can close these out.
Here. But for the top and bottom bit, this would not work. So do be careful here. Instead, I want to add another static body 2D with another collision shape. And for this collision shape, I want to create a new rectangular shape that is going to be all the way at the top here. And let me move it to the right position here. And here is fine. Finally, I want to duplicate this shape and then move it all the way down. So we are covering the final part of the map.
I think mine is a little more refined than that.
The player is not able to leave the screen in any direction. Perfect. Next up, we are going to animate the player, which is going to make the entire thing feel much more dynamic. In Godot, there are a lot of ways to animate things. The easiest one is to use an animated sprite 2D, which is a sprite 2D that's, well, animated. Inside of this node, you can create animations and then select them. That's pretty much it. Let's have a look. Back in Godot, I want to work inside of the player. And then get rid of the sprite 2D. Instead, I want to add an animated sprite 2D, which at the moment is going to give us a warning that we have to add sprite frames to it. For that, you want to look at animation and then inside of sprite frames create new sprite frames. This right now doesn't really do anything, but if you click on it again, then you're getting a sprite frames editor. In there, on the left side, you can see the animation that you want to play. Let's say for now, I simply want to play the left walking animation for the player. Then inside of this main field, you can play the actual animation. This you can create in basically two ways. Number one is you could simply drag graphics in here. For example, if I grab a couple of these random objects and drag them in there, I can play the animation, and then Godot is going to play one frame after another. Which would work, but for our purposes, this isn't ideal. Let's undo all of this. Instead, for the player, we have a player tile set. If I drag it in there, you can see that we have all of the player frames in this kind of setup. And from this, we want to select specific frames, like for example this graphic here. To work with that, inside of the sprite frames, you want to click on this symbol, where you can add frames.
What symbol is that? Add frames.
From a sprite sheet. We want to go to Graphics, Player, and then select the tile set or the sprite sheet. And then we can zoom in by holding Control and using the mouse wheel. Godot wants to separate this graphic into specific cells. We have 4 horizontal cells, but only 3 vertical ones. The size lines up.
How did you get there?
You want to click on this symbol, where you can add frames from a sprite sheet. We want to go to Graphics, Player, and then select the tile set or the sprite sheet. And then we can zoom in by holding Control and using the mouse wheel.
This is the one. That's better. Hold on.
Godot wants to separate this graphic into specific cells. We have 4.
Hold on. I need a sip of water. I see Jolly's very excited about animation. That's fun to see.
Horizontal cells, but only 3 vertical ones. The size lines up pretty well, so this looks pretty good.
Bitch, how? This doesn't line up at all. Okay, this does.
And now we have to select the right kind of frames for the animation. At the moment, we want to get the left animation, which is the left one.
Oh, that's better.
And if you click on it, you're getting a number. This would be frame 0, then we have frame 1, and then frame 2. These are the 3 frames that I want to add to it. And now, we can play this animation. Although at the moment, it doesn't look great. This animation is actually supposed to have this frame, then this frame, then this frame again, and then the final frame. To get that, you can simply have the first frame selected, then press Ctrl-C and Ctrl-V, and now we have duplicated the frame. And to move this frame, you can either move it in the right position,
Oh yeah, that's much better.
or use these arrow keys. That way, we can move frames around quite easily. We are getting a much nicer walking animation. You can also set the frame rate, if this thing is looping, and if it's autoplaying. You can also set the frame duration, but I don't really care about any of those values. Just make sure that you are looping the animation, otherwise it would simply stop on this frame. Also for now, I want to autoplay this animation. And that way, if I run the game, we are getting a very basic animation. That is looking pretty alright. And now to work with this, we want to...
Okay. I think I get it. So... add animation. Ride, walk, animation. Up, walk, animation. Down, walk, animation. This is the right side. I may need to... Oh, whoops. Okay, that should be good. So now I need to do the same thing. Auto slice. Good. And now God, this is honestly so simple. I love it. I have certainly done something to the size of my character.
Use GDScript, and to keep things organized, I want to create another function for the animation. No need for parameters. I basically want to check if we have a direction, then we want to actually play the animation. If we don't have a direction, then the player should be static, or in other words, we only want to get the first frame. That way it looks like the player is idling. If we have a direction, I want to play the animation. Which for now means we are simply not doing anything, because we already have an animation, it's just not doing the right thing. However, if we don't have a direction, so we're not moving, then I want to get the animated sprite and update the frame property. This one should always be 0.
Animated.
Now by default, this value increases, so we are selecting different frames. But if you set it to 0, we're always clicking on the first frame, so this one here. That way, at the very least, we can play the animation or not play the animation. Really important, don't forget to actually call this animation function, which I want to do before we are doing move and slide, animation, although the actual position of animation doesn't matter. Anyway, let's try this now. If I am not moving, the player...
Let's try it. Oh, alright. Oh, yeah, whoops, I moved something. Something broke, I'm not sure what or how. Yeah, it's better. What is happening? That would be why. All of a sudden, that makes perfect sense. Oh, wait. Okay, it works, but the animation isn't playing.
Air is also not animating, but if I start moving, then we are getting the walking animation. And that is working pretty well. Next up, I want to get the right walking animation. For that, you could add another animation in here. So simply add another animation with right, and then select the player and the right movement. So these frames here. However, we don't actually have to do that. We can approach this much more elegantly. So let's get rid of the right animation. Instead, all that we have to do, if the player is moving to the right, we want to flip this animated sprite on the horizontal axis, which we can actually do super.
Let me get rid of that. And this as well.
Super easily. With the animated sprite selected, we have offset, and there we can flip H. And if you have over it, the property is called flip_H. Inside of GDScript, what we can do, if direct dot x is greater than 0, then the animated sprite 2D dot flip H property should be true. Let's try that. If I go left,
Wait.
H property should be true.
Animated sprite 2D dot flip H equals true. Something wacky is happening.
Let's try that. If I go left, we're looking left, and if I go right, we are looking to the right. Now, if I look left again, we're not going back to the left side.
This isn't working the way I expect it to.
So that's not great, but at the very least, we are making progress. To fix this part, all we have to do is add an else statement and then copy all of this with the difference that flip age should be false. Let's try this again. And now we're getting the left animation and the right animation, and that is working really well. Cool, definitely progress. Although we are trying to do something very simple and
I'm hoping he backs up a bit.
we are using with the difference that flip age should be false. Right, and if leg goes on to the right animation, we want to flip this animated speed and should by go right, not going back, and then copy all of this.
I have an idea. If direction.y greater than 0, animated sprite 2D dot flip v equals true, else animated sprite 2D dot flip v equals false. Well, it's working the way I intended, but that's kind of funny otherwise. Alright, hang on.
With the difference that flip age should be false. Let's try this again. And now we're getting the left animation and the right animation, and that is working really well. Cool, definitely progress. Although we are trying to do something very simple, and we are using 4 lines of code for it. This could be more elegant. The way to approach that is to first get the animated sprite 2D, and then flip age. The value we want to assign to it is going to be direction.x being greater than 0. And then we are done. This line is doing the same thing as these 4 lines. And I think it's much easier to read as well. So let me get rid of these 4 lines, try this again, and we are getting the same result.
It's working, but it's not playing.
Doing this writer we have not under the much so made and wing. Now by default, we have energy writing.
I feel like there's something
frame, press frame. So, although and now we have to select the right kind of frames for the animation. At the moment, we want to get the left animation, which is the left one. And if you click on it, you're getting a number. This would be frame 0, then we have frame 1, and then frame 2. These are the 3 frames that I want to add to it. And now, we can play this animation. Although at the moment, it doesn't look great. This animation is actually supposed to have this frame, then this frame, then this frame again, and then the final frame. To get that, you can simply have the first frame selected, then press Ctrl C and Ctrl V, and now we have duplicated the frame. And to move this frame, you can either move it in the right position or use these arrow keys. That way, we can move frames around quite easily. We are getting a much nicer walking animation. You can also set the frame rate, if this thing is looping, and if it's autoplay. You can also set the frame duration, but I don't really care about any of those values. Just make sure that you are looping the animation, otherwise it would simply stop on this frame. Also for now, I want to autoplay this animation. And that way, if I run the game, we are getting a very basic animation.
Oh, autoplay on load. That was what I missed. Got it. Okay.
That is looking this on all right. It's the right not and we'll use it. I can think and now work with related and then files I get and for time to fix thing is these 4 lines. And I think it's much easier to read as well. So let me get rid of these 4 lines. Try this again. And we are getting the same result. Doing this kind of stuff comes with experience. If you work inside of an engine for long enough, then at some point you find ways to make your code more efficient. So for now, if you work with more if statements, that's totally fine, but this should be more elegant and much easier to read.
Honestly,
with that covered, let's do another exercise. I want you to finish the animated sprite, which means you should be adding the logic for going up and down. So in other words, select the right animation depending on the player movement.
Okay. Let's see. I think I need to set up cuz like left walk animation can be cheesed by like, but I think this time I need to redo up walk animation and down walk animation. So let's pull back in the up one. Okay, let me autoplay that. And I think this is the one that should probably be auto-loading. Okay. All right. Man, these viewer bots on Twitch are really getting on my nerves. But okay, yeah. Now, how do I want to do this? If direction Okay, I think I'm seeing the logic here. Wait. So then how would I do this? If direction dot x if direction dot y if direction dot x you can just as easily like flip it and it works. But if direction dot y animated sprite 2D dot yeah, I don't know. You know what? I'm curious to see what he says.
And see how you get.
I know I'm going to need some kind of function, but
I want to work with the sprite frames and then add 2 more animations.
Yeah, up and down.
And down. These, unfortunately, we cannot mirror. I guess let's start with up. I want to click on this button again, select the player tile set, zoom in, and at the moment we are looking at up, which is this animation. Add the 3 frames, and then, once again, I want to duplicate the first frame and place it between these 2 walking frames. All I have to do is press Ctrl C and Ctrl V, and then drag this frame in the right position. Just to double check, let's play the animation, and that looks pretty alright. Cool. Besides that, for down, we want to do the same thing, so grid, layer, get the down walking animation, add the 3 frames, duplicate the first one, and drag the frame in the right position. Then we are getting the down walking animation. Perfect. With that, we have the right animations that we can work with. We just have to figure out when to play which using GDScript. I first checked if direction.x is different from 0. If that is the case, I want to play animated sprite 2D and update the animation. This one should be left.
Hey, Doug, thank you so much for the raid. How was the Lost Judgment stream? And to all the raiders, hello, welcome to Pause and Effect. I'm your host, CJ. I do game development every Thursday. So, yeah, feel free to raid and run, but otherwise, stick around. Maybe you'll learn something like I'm learning something. But yeah, Doug, thank you so much for the raid.
Left. We are still flipping the sprite on the horizontal axis. So if the player is going to the right, then left is automatically going to become right.
Just finished chapter 4 and almost 87% done with the completion list. Oh, hell yeah. Wait, so how many chapters are there? Like 5, 6, I'm guessing? I'm guessing 5 if you're like 87% of the way through. Kind of reminds me of Like a Dragon Gaiden. That only had 5 chapters that were long as shit, but I spent more of my time just doing side stuff than doing the actual story, which, yeah, more power to you.
Besides that, else, if we are only going up and down, then I want to get the animated sprite 2D and update the animation again. Let's say for now, this one could be up. Let's try this one.
There's 13 chapters in a finale. Oh, God. I severely underestimated. Damn, Doug. And you're already 87% done with the completion list at chapter 4? Honestly, bro, wow, I am impressed.
I can go left, I can go right, and I can go up. Although I cannot go down, at least not with the right animation. But we are...
Let me see. So, what does he do? If direction.x does not equal 0, animated sprite 2D.animation equals... Oh. Left, walk, animation... else. Doug, C++ is my enemy as well. However, this is Godot Engine, which has its own scripting language called GD script. You can use C++ if you so desire. However, GD script in this engine is actually better. And I've seen a whole bunch of different tutorials, and I keep bouncing off of them, but this admittedly 9-hour tutorial from Clear Code on YouTube has actually been super helpful in terms of getting me to understand the logic of everything. Equals up walk animation. Oh. I'm good. Rather have my leg broken than do coding. Shit.
Are making progress. Now at this point, at least I can the animation right a which using GD script. I first checked if direction.x is different from 0. If that is the case, I want to play animated sprite 2D and update the animation. This one should be left. We are still flipping the sprite on the horizontal axis. So if the player is going to the right, then left is automatically going to become right. Besides that,
invalid. Oh, I forgot the dollar signs. Huh, this is odd. How about if direction.y? How about if direction.y is greater than 0? I have an idea. I may need to. Yeah. Did that work? Okay, how about if direction.y if direction.y is greater than 0, else, and then add a thing for the logic here, else, animated sprite 2d.frame equals 0. Oh yeah. Okay, this isn't working.
Else, if we are only going up and down, then I want to get the animated sprite to be and update the animation again. Let's say for now, this one could be up. Let's try this one. I can go left, I can go right, and I can go up. Although I cannot go down, at least not with the right animation. But we are making progress. Now at this point, you could approach this in two ways. You could either check if direction.y is smaller than 0, and if that is the case, we want to do all of this. If that is not the case, let me duplicate all of this. Direction.y is greater than 0, then the animation should be down. Let's try this one now. I can go left, right, up, and down. This, once again, is working, but we are also doing something very simple over 4 lines of code.
Yeah, this is very...
A better way of approaching this would be to get the animated sprite, then the animation, and assign it up if direction.y is smaller than 0, and if it's not the case, else we want to assign the down animation. That way, we can get rid of all of this, and we would have the same result.
Okay, let's see. If direction animated sprite 2d.fliph equals direction.x greater than 0, if direction.x does not equal 0, animated sprite 2d.animation equals left walk animation, else. That is too many indents. Animated sprite 2d.animation equals up walk animation if direction.y is less than 0, else down walk animation. It oddly doesn't want to work. Is there something in my input map? Okay, this is being very odd.
Much more elegant. Let's try all of that. And now I can go in all of the 4 directions, and the player is animating or static when we are not moving. At this point, we have basically finished the player, which means...
I'm having a problem here. This is very strange. I mean, it works. This is being incredibly odd. Which is odd because I've followed this entire thing to the letter. I followed this entire thing to the letter, yet somehow it doesn't want to... I need to scale my player back down a bit. I need to scale him down further. I wonder... Hang on. Direction dial y greater than 0. And y direction dot y is greater than 0. Yeah, like, that's really strange. What if I undo, move, and slide? Never mind, don't do that. What about else if... greater than 0? Else... animated sprite 2D dot animation equals up walk animation. Error of 26.9. Huh, this is... There is a colon after... Oh, wait a minute. That's very strange. You know, I have a really stupid idea in order to try to get this to work. Yeah, I know. Okay. If... input... If direction equals move left, animated sprite 2D dot animation equals left walk animation. Oh, assignment is not allowed. All right.
Means moving. Action.
Okay, let me just attempt his bullshit again.
That's just, we want to assign the down animation. That way, we can get rid of all of this, and
Okay. If direction.x does not equal 0, dot animation equals left walk animation, else animated dot animation equals block animation if direction dot y is less than 0, else down block animation. There. There's something really wonky with this whole thing. Like, I have omnidirectional movement, yet for whatever inane reason, it doesn't want to work like this. Like, it doesn't want to register, like, the fact that I am moving up. I'm realizing now, too, I need to scale the player up. Just a smidge. Alright, Killer Machine, thank you so much for the lurk. I appreciate that, and I will hopefully catch you on a future stream. Have a good night. Yeah, I don't know, man. Like, I'm not sure what the issue is. This code outright doesn't register my Y movement. Even my, I don't know what's going on, but like, my keyboard, my D-pad, my keyboard and my D-pad movements only register diagonals. I'm not sure what changed. Wait, does my other thing work? It does. Yeah, it's being incredibly odd. Ouch. Wait, I wonder. No, that didn't do anything. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I feel like I followed... Oh! That's the problem. No, that it was not, in fact, the problem. Yeah, I don't get it. Let me double check something here. If direction.y is less than 0. Yeah. I don't know, but I have still made an hour's worth of progress. So I understand it. I'm going to take it as a win. And I think just cut my losses and call it there for now. But, yeah, like, honest to God, shout out to Clear Code. I actually understand this shit. And thank God I do. Because otherwise I would be going utterly nuts right now. Yeah, just like take the W and move all the way the hell on. Good night, see you next time. Alright, thank you for being here, Essie Jolly. I will catch you on the next stream. So thank you all so much for hanging out with me as I attempted to understand this tutorial, which I'm glad I understand it. I really am. But, yeah, of course, Godot is being stinky as hell, so I, am just gonna have to figure this out another time. Either way, thanks for tuning in, everybody. If you liked what you saw, please consider following, subscribing, liking, commenting, all that good stuff. I said right when the stream began, I'm not sure if my heart is completely in it just because I'm tired, but I got through 2.5 hours. That counts for something. Either way, thank you all so much for checking out my other videos and my shorts. It really means a lot to me. Keep an eye out for tomorrow's stream. I am going to be doing a very long overdue continuation of Dragon Quest VII Reimagined. I'm really looking forward to that. I hope you guys are as well. Sunday is going to be a collab. I'm being coy about whether or not about what it's going to be, but I will reveal that once Sunday rolls around, so pay attention to that and keep an eye out for Saturday's video as well. And either way, thanks for hanging out with me and vibing with me and the occasional chat or two. I greatly appreciate that. Once again, this has been Pause and Effect on Air. I've been your host, CJ. I will see you all tomorrow for Dragon Quest. Have a good night.